Hi, we are Greg,
Ian,
and Randall, and we are G.I.R.
This is our 315 Networks lab project. The project was to go through a set of labs that taught us how to make a wireless network. Then we create our own wireless network using the Aruba equipment given.
Lab 1 is to reset the controller to a default state and to reset the access point. This can be shown on the screen now.
Before resetting the access point, we had to add license to the controller. This was part of Lab 2.
The rest of Lab 2 involved the use of a laptop to configure the controller through the Aruba control panel. We went through the initial setup, which involved naming the controller and setting up the time zone and time. We added a new employee VLAN and a guest VLAN. We set the IP address of the controller to 10.1.20.100.
We confirmed the IP configuration of the controller on PuTTY and checked the status of the controller. We had to check the software in the inventory of the controller in order to determine the serial number and OS version.
Lab 3 was focused on configuring the employee SSID using the WLAN wizard. After that, we used the GUI to verify the configuration made by the wizard, and at the end of Lab 3, the SSID wasn't visible in the WLAN tab.
Lab 4 was focused on AP installation using the GUI. After that, we verified SSID connectivity and checked the number of clients through the AP wizard.
The main objectives of Lab 5 were to connect a WLAN client to a WPA PSK network, then configure the Aruba controller to communicate with an external radius server. After that, we had to configure the default roles for 802.12, and finally, we had to test the communication between the Aruba controller and the radius server. This is the end of the labs that we had to do.
We now move on to the final project, which involves starting all over. We started the project from scratch by resetting and configuring the controller and access point. This follows the same process as Lab 1.
We continued to follow the instructions in Labs 2 and 3, but we changed the names to reflect Team G.I.R. This included the names of the Wi-Fi, the SSID, the controller, and so on.
Lab 4 was done the same as before. The only difference was in the names of the network. The tasks were the same, such as provisioning AP via the GUI, verifying the SSID connectivity, and checking the number of clients through AP Wizard.
Every time we wanted to check our work on the project, the controller and access point needed to be reset. Also, Lab 4 needed to be redone. This was done in order to recreate the network.
To demonstrate that our network was functioning properly, we had to ensure that our laptops and phones could connect to the network. There were no problems when trying to connect to the network.
The next check was to ping each node on the network. This was our first significant problem in the project. The laptops that were connected to the network got an IP address, but they could not ping any other laptops in the network. This was strange because the cell phones that were connected to the network could ping from any location. We found no solution to this problem, but we believe the problem came from the access point. The band that our laptops were connected to may not have allowed intercommunication, but allowed external communication.
After this, we attempted to create a guest captive portal. This task involved the creation of the firewall policies for pre- and post-authentication, VAP and SSID profiles, and creating a guest provisioning user.
We made an attempt to test our captive portal, but ran into some issues. For reasons unknown, we could not log into the guest captive portal through the G.I.R guest Wi-Fi. We believe this issue was also caused by the access point.
So as an overall conclusion, we successfully created a network with minimal problems. The only significant problem occurred when we created the guest network. This Networks Lab project taught us the process of what it takes to successfully create a wireless network.